Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown featuring the legendary The Black Fawn with the forces of the Warriors of Chaos up against Schnitzel Visa and his High Elf legions. Should be a real good fun game here on Hell Pit, and I wanted to showcase this game today as we'll be looking at quite an elite High Elf build, and I've been trying to decipher recently if elite, especially elite ground forces, can work well as armies in Total War Warhammer. They tend to suffer due to the effects of magic, large creatures, and so on. So we're going to have to see how they do fare today. Now, in the front line for this rather balanced Chaos build, we do have a load of Chaos Marauders along the front line. These guys are cheap, cheerful, happy to be here, and just happy to be a part of the slaughter. Should do very well up against Spearmen and help wrap around into those nice and squishy High Elf back lines. In the secondary battle formation, we do have some mid-tier troops, Chaos Warriors with great weapons. Their great weapons certainly going to allow them to pick apart some of the more tanky units in the High Elf roster. Those great weapons will aid them in taking down chariots, cavalry and monsters, while still being able to overwhelm the lower tiers of the High Elf force as well. In the back here, we do have the Summoners of Rage, Regiment of Renowned Dragon Ogres, who have not only really awesome thundery effects around them and weapons, but they come in with magical attacks, which gives them a nice little niche in some areas. They also have a pretty decent bonus versus large and anti-large, so these guys can really surround and tear apart even the mighty Star Dragon if you do leave them a little bit unattended. Over on the left-hand side, we do have a nice skirmish corps. We have double Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and they're going to be supported by a unit of Chaos Warhounds. I'm a big fan of running these type of troops together. You need some skirmishers to help protect your skirmishers, basically, with some nice synergy there. Up in the skies, we have a Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows on a Manticore here. Not quite as cool looking as some of the other armoured Manticores, but still very badass for sure. Coming in with Scroll of Shielding, we have the Pendulum, which has been nerfed, but still very good up against the tightly packed High Elf forces. We also have Enfeebling Foe and Melkov's Mystifying Miasma. And then we have a Rogue Chaos Lord on Dragon, a character I basically never see, but he is coming in with that fire damage, which is a little bit risky up against High Elves and the amount of fire-resistant units they can bring. We do have Standard Eye, Deadly Onslaught, Pendant of Slanesh, which is a really powerful ability, and Filth Mace as well to apply poison, cause terror, and all that good stuff. Of course, he's already on a two-headed dragon, which is swooping right now over this mine shaft, so he should be able to go toe-to-toe well with a lot of the High Elf characters, but not the big boy up in the sky here. We'll get to him in just a second. So for the High Elf forces, we do have a couple of skirmishers, double Illyrian Reaver Archers to help push back Marauder throwing axes and so forth, or not throwing axes, but horsemen, sorry. Horsemen with throwing axes and horsemen with javelins. They're very good at counter-skirmishing such troops. In the front line, we do come in with Silver and Guard, so no basic spearmen here. Silver and Guard, not quite top-tier elite, but very strong middle-tier unit. Anti-large magic resistance as well, which does help them a little bit up against pendulums with that 30%, and have a decent solid bonus versus large themselves. And then we come to the elite troops, the Sword Masters of Hoeth, standing here like absolute bosses with their really cool formation. These guys will tear their way through almost all Chaos Infantry. We'd like to see them go toe-to-toe with Chosen, actually, and see who comes out on top. We also have a unit of Phoenix Guard, which are very elite troops themselves, but more anti-large focused, here to deal with some of the bigger, nastier creatures Chaos can bring. We have double Eagle Claw bolt throwers as well for some long-range support. We have a Mage of Life, which you will almost always see when Imric is brought. She's coming with Regrowth and Earthblood, and her entire job is going to be to keep Imric nice and healthy and topped up. And speaking of the Dragon Prince himself, here he is. Coming in with the Dragon Horn, which is a nice ability. Lord of Dragons, which I think is incredibly powerful. A lot of people, I think, underrate this. But the reason I like it so much, apart from its minus 24 melee defense and minus 40 melee attack, is you can apply that to a unit, not just a character. So what I would do with him is you swoop in, try to assassinate a character, for example. Summoners of Rage come running over to counterpunch them. You simply drop a Lord of Dragons on them. They're now absolute wet noodles. It's very powerful for sure. But this is a really incredibly elite High Elf force. You can see coming in at just over 500 troops. I mean, the Chaos force is also relatively elite, but a little bit more kind of varied, I suppose. It has a bit of a bigger skirmish core, flying units, more cheap infantry as well to wrap, as well as some big helpful monsters. So we're going to have to see if the kind of elite ground forces can work well with the synergy, of course, of the hard-hitting Imric up in the skies. Lovely play coming out of the gates, though, by the Chaos player. Illyrian Reaver Archers are hit by Melkov's Mystifying Miasma. Going to be slowing them down, allowing the Chaos Warhounds to catch them, but Silver and Guard have intercepted. And it looks like even the bolt throws are getting in there, lashing in some shots, and some really good damage there to the Chaos Warhound straight away. If they can break them off the field and then apply pressure with the Reaver Archers, could be in for some good work early days for the High Elves. Lean Reaver Archers are poking now at the Marauder Horsemen, and they need to get rid of these guys as quickly as possible. Their support with the Chaos Lord in the skies, as well as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, could overwhelm Imric and kind of drag him down. And apart from the Lean Reavers, you do have the Bolt Throwers, but they don't really want to be firing directly above themselves, so when the dragons do arrive, it could be a little bit of a struggle. First big breath attack is coming in, and my god, it absolutely nukes some Swordmasters here. Now, they didn't lose half their models, but they lost about half health, and this is one of the problems I was kind of talking about earlier with elite infantry. Such things as breath attacks, pendulums, and so on can do some massive damage straight out of the gate. And just as I say that, it looks like a pendulum is going to be coming down on the Phoenix Guard. Lovely dodge, though, by the High Elf player. Tiny tad bit too late. Does catch some losses, but nowhere near as bad. Only drops one model, and he's going to be healing them up as well. And healing and elite troops, of course, go together very, very well. It looks like, for the most part, the Horsemen haven't been able to get any poke damage in, really. They've just been getting whittled down so far by the Illyrian Reaver Archers. Imric flying overhead as well is, in fact, going to dart down, and he catches the Horseman unawares. And he's, going to be feasting quite happily for sure. You can see some of the Horsemen are being terrified and desperately trying to kite away. The entire time, though, they can 360 some of those thrown axes into Imric, and he's relatively squishy for a big, scary Dragon Lord, although it looks like he has forced off the Horsemen, at least for now. Illyrian Reavers in hot pursuit. The early skirmish seems to have favoured the High Elves slightly, but they do, of course, come in with those bolt throwers as well. Although, I mean, the loss to the Swordmasters maybe makes it a little bit more even than I'm kind of letting on there. Because Warhounds once again start to pressure the Reavers just to push them back and save the throwing axes before retreating once more themselves, as the Chaos Marauders do start their advance, chanting their war songs as they advance on the pointy ears. There we go, can't get my words out today. Yeah, Chaos Marauders will struggle to break through Silvern Guard. Silvern Guard are incredibly tanky and stalwart elven folk. It's going to take them a long time to break through and really start to shut down the Eagle Claw bolt throwers, but he does have the advantage of numbers. Should be able to find some holes and gaps in the battle line to really force their way through. Over in the distance, Illyrian Reavers do dart into combat with the Horsemen, which is a bit risky, considering that the Warhounds are present as well, trying to perhaps get some burst damage and force these guys off the field due to their low health, but it was a trap, and with the Chaos Warhounds here, it's not going to go too well, but more Illyrian Raven Archers have arrived, as well as Imric. He's going to be slamming at these Horsemen very quickly. The Summoners of Rage need to dart over and help support and force back Imric if possible. A massive breath attack, though, does come down the line of Silvern Guard, doing some massive damage. As you can see, the battle is well and truly underway. Marauders beaten against the shield wall of the High Elves there. Is it going to be enough to force their way through? The Chaos Lord does dart down into the midst of the Phoenix Guard, trying to eat that Eagle Claw bolt throw, but realising it's a little bit of a scary situation with Phoenix Guard nearby. The Chaos Warriors are on the approach to help support, and it looks like that Chaos Lord is going straight after the Mage of Life, which is a fantastic target in here. Looks like going to pin her in as well between a tree and a load of scary Marauders. Now, forcing off the Mage of Life is an absolute must here. You do not want to take on Imric, especially if he can get to his healing cap. He can, carry armies completely on his back. Summoners of Rage are here to support the Chaos Lord, who got absolutely hammered there. Lord of Dragons was popped on him, and looks like Imric, though, is going to manage to drag him up into the sky, and this is a tiny bit of a miss micro here from Chaos. They did fantastic work bringing over the Summoners, but this Chaos Lord needs to dart down, even if it's onto the Phoenix Guard. Just get close to the Summoners of Rage, because in a 1v1 fight, there's not much, or not many people who can match Imric in might, and even the two heads of the Chaos Dragon snapping towards Imric is not going to be enough, and I fear that this Chaos Lord is a little bit doomed for. You can see the bolt throws have been overrun, though, in the front line. The more elite Chaos Warriors have now engaged in the fray. Going to be treating these guys apart relatively well, and as we can see in the distance, the dragon does fall to its death, and that could buckle the forces of Chaos here, although they are still in the ascendancy if we look at the balance of power, and that's because these warriors with great weapons have come in and really chewed through the Silvern Guard, helped drag them down. With no life mage left on the field to help support Imric, he's really going to struggle in the late game, although a massive breath attack is coming down, focusing down the Chaos Warriors, getting some good value straight out of the gate. Now, Warriors in the front line will force their way through the Silvern Guard. It will not take too much damage in return, but it will take them a little while, hopefully buying time for the Swordmasters, to cut up some of the remaining units. But of course, these guys did go down to about half health before the battle even began, really, with the breath attacks, but up to 57 kills, not doing it too bad. Take a little look, though, not that much on the damage value front, and it looks like they are nearly spent as well. Imric trying desperately to find a home, whilst good play by the Chaos player, always keeping the Summoners of Rage near the Chaos Sorcerer. So the Chaos Sorcerer this time learns from the mistakes of the Lord, darts down when Imric gets a little too close into the welcoming arms of the Summoners of Rage, and Imric does not want to tussle with those bad boys. It looks like he's going to be darting out to the side here, trying to finish off some unsupported Marauder Horsemen, which isn't a bad idea. They can do some really good, consistent pressure onto him in the late game if he gets surrounded and forced to stay in an engagement for too long. Looks like we do have a lovely Chain Lightning coming down, going to help finish off. Actually, it looks like it's come to a bit of friendly fire to Chaos Warriors there, but also caught more of the Swordsmen, who are still going strong, despite the fact they're on so low health. They've carved their way through a unit of Chaos Warriors and now moved on to some Marauders as well, with the support of some Illyrian Reavers who are weaving through these trees and just doing some lovely cycle charging. It's an incredibly close game so far. Phoenix Guard have got on their optimal targets of the Summoners of Rage, but it looks like the Chaos player is just trying to overwhelm them with sheer numbers here, trying to break them off the field as quickly as possible, so Imric cannot saturate on them in the end game. Imric, though, the ultimate assassin when it comes down to it, hunting characters and heroes. Lord of the Dragons has been popped on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, who's turning to engage, but with the support of the Summoners of Rage, this could be a dicey engagement for sure. Chaos Warriors with great weapons, hefting those mighty weapons after Imric trying to drag down the Prince from his bloodied beast. And it's a close fight all round. Swordmasters are getting in on the action as well, trying to support their lord where possible. But in comes a Feral Manticore, which has been summoned. Actually, no, it can't be a summon, is it? No, it's just the Chaos Sorcerer Lord coming back in on his Manticore. I thought there was no Beastcaster. Coming in, doing some lovely cycle charging. Once again, though, going after the Phoenix Guard, really trying to hammer these guys home, and then hoping the Summoners of Rage can indeed carry. There was a lovely enfeebling foe going down on the Phoenix Guard there, down to just 19 models, but looks like they might be able to finish off the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows, who's starting to break and run for the hills, but now pulling through away with the Summoners of Rage in a desperate attempt to escape. Imric does have relatively healthy hit points, at least for the end game here, up to 3,500, and he's using his mobility to his advantage here, trying to rescue as many of his own troops, like these Chaos Marauders, force off, these troops like the Chaos Marauders, and come back and help out in his centre pocket where possible. Summoners of Rage are going for a headlong charge, it would seem, into Sylvan Guard before wheeling about once again to come and try and babysit the Chaos Sorcerer, who Imric has an absolute crush on, really wants to get to tangle with this lovely Sorcerer up in the skies, but at all costs, the Chaos player is keeping him away, only coming in for cycle charging when possible, and the Summoners now have Imric in their grasp, doing some pretty massive damage as he tries to flee, but getting a little bit tangled up. Looks like the Chaos Sorcerer is well going to come in for a rear attack here, which is the best way to do it. Does need to flee though before Imric turns and engages. But if he gets one or two big hits in, he can really tank down a mage caster for sure. Imric is getting staggered a little bit by the Summoners, who do have the Lord of Dragons popped on them, lowering their melee attacks. They're not going to be doing too much damage, despite the fact they have him surrounded. And this is really good play by the High Elf player, realising what unit is the threat. You don't use this item necessarily to assassinate a character, you use it to stop whatever's trying to counter-punch and assassinate you in return. Very close game though. It looks like the Summoners of Rage are terrified here, as the Sorcerer is the last bastion of hope for Chaos, but Imric at the same time, down to just 10 leadership, has managed to take a lovely huge chunk out of that Chaos Sorcerer. Most of the forces of the High Elves did break here, leaving Imric and some loyal Sylvan Guard at the depth, and it looks like the Dragon Prince is just about going to win. That was incredibly close. One or two more hits, or perhaps if that Lord of the Dragons came a few seconds later, Imric would die and the High Elf forces would break. Insanely close game. Very well played to both the Black Fawn and Schnitzel Visa. Awesome stuff, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content into the future. And if you want to see your own replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord. That is where you can submit them. There's a link in the description down below, as well as other ways, other links to how you can support the channel via Patreon and the like. But anyway, let's have a little look at the points. As I'm sure you want to see, the mighty Imric did get 96 kills and damage value of 3,865, which is some pretty impressive stuff, but Imric at the same time has to make that kind of value. He is so expensive. He costs you nearly a quarter of your army. And yeah, you have to basically pair him with a Life Mage, although Life Mage didn't really manage to get any heals off on him. he still managed to carry in the end. And as for the elite infantry, how did they fare? Well, Sylvanguard were never going to have too much of a good time, at least on damage output, but saying that, damage value 1,000 gold here, the others struggling a little bit. But their main job was to protect the Eagle Claw bolt throwers as they kind of tried to whittle down at some of the larger threats that Black Fawn could have brought. Now, the bolt throwers didn't do too bad, kind of getting some pretty decent damage value of 900 there, as well as 670 here. So still doing some good work and helping push away early on some of the skirmishers, poison hounds, and doing some consistent damage to the Lord at long range as well. Really did help out all round. You can see Alien Reavers as well got some pretty good value, particularly this one unit. Swordmasters, however, damage value still 925, despite the fact they got nuked very early on with a breath attack. And the Phoenix Guard, it looks like they gained some chevrons coming up. I think they may have started with one chevron already, but damage value of 1017. So the elite infantry build did certainly work here, which is something I'm very excited about, because I feel like elite infantry builds have really suffered for a long time. However, you do need some good synergy. You can't go just straight infantry. It doesn't really pay off. So we still have a huge flying terror-causing monster in the form of Imric, who can bounce around your formation and help out where needed. Also coming with those big breath attacks himself to really try to nuke down enemies who could grind through that build. And we also needed the skirmishers. If he didn't have the skirmishers to counter the enemies, his elite troops simply would have been ground down by long range, magic, and yeah, breath attacks and scary stuff. So needed the help of Imric and the Reavers to make it work, but it did work. As for the force of Black Fawn, awesome to see a Chaos Lord in action. One of the cheaper options for Chaos. Still come in though with some pretty decent damage dealt at over 9,000 and over 2,500 damage value. His one problem was really getting brought up and into the sky up against Imric, which is a small mistake by Black Fawn, but to be honest, it's kind of hard to do you know, you've already attacked him, he's on the ground, you think you're fine, you go away to look at a different situation, all of a sudden Imric's pulled you up into the sky, and your Summoners of Rage are nowhere near to be found, and that kind of was the death of him. If he had managed to dart back down towards the Summoners, there is no way Imric could have landed. He simply would have been munched to death, and as you can see, the Summoners were all MVPs here for the forces of the Warriors of Chaos, coming in with 7,500 damage dealt, and a very solid 2,300 damage value. Anyway guys, that was a pretty awesome game. Hope you enjoyed. Till next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.